The first shift always began before dawn, because that was when the wind rose out of the chasm and licked the watchtower windows like a dog begging for entry. The night guards would already be slouched over empty mugs, their faces gray from listening to what they could not unhear. But protocol said there could be no gap. Someone must always be stationed at the recorder, so I climbed the spiral stairs with the same dread everyone carried in their pockets and relieved Riva, who didn't even bother with the usual pleasantries. She pressed the leather-bound logbook into my hands, whispered, "Do not look outside," and hurried past. Palms clapped to her ears as though the very air were poisonous. From the cliff's lip, the town below resembled a scatter of children's blocks around the harbor, a toy arrangement that belied the thing that lived in the gulf between sea and sky. The tower had been erected generations earlier as a simple weather observatory, but one October morning, the instruments started gathering something else, something profoundly wrong. Sounds that had no earthly source, voices that did not yet exist. The long brass horn on the roof, meant to sample wind velocity, began funneling in human screams. They were faint at first, nearly indistinguishable from gull cries, but amplification and meticulous note-keeping revealed their ghastly clarity. Each scream carried a phrase, a dying exclamation shaped by a very specific throat. The council tried to hide it, though word like seawater found cracks. People started visiting the archives to match the newly entered recordings with familiar speech patterns, the odd lilt of an ant or the stutter of a baker. Once matched, the prophecy was always fulfilled. 2 days, 2 weeks, 6 months later, the recorded phrase would become the speaker's last words. The harbor master slipped on algae and snapped his skull. His final utterance, "A little help, please," had been filed 3 nights earlier, along with the time stamp. Many who served at the watchtower went quietly insane. More than once smothered the horn with tarred canvas, but every time the wind shredded their efforts and the device caught screams anew. I kept returning because I believed foreknowledge had value. If we heard someone's future death cry, maybe we could insulate them from whatever disaster threatened. I did not admit aloud that I was also listening for my own voice, rehearsing what I might say should the tape choose me. At 4:45, the logbook recorded calm. At 4:51, the needle on channel 2 jerked, the static thickened, and the scream emerged, "Tell her I never meant." Then a bone-rattling gasp, as though lungs collapsed against iron. I wrote the phrase down in ink that shook and added the index number, T1189. Our librarian, Soren, would run it through his vocal patterns database. As soon as the morning sun enabled the solar array, the voice sounded male, late 30s, local accent. That much I could guess. My duty was only to record. By first light, Channel 4 delivered another shorter moan. "It's too bright." The words degraded in a hiss, more wind than human. I cataloged that too. The council would hold a closed session at noon, because 2 recordings in 1 shift meant something imminent was brewing. Every prophecy arrived with a weather shift, a tension in the atmosphere that pressed up under fingernails. I wrestled with the faceless prosophy. I felt it now, an itching dread. At breakfast, I found Soren hunched over his reed paper scrolls. His left ear was bleeding where he'd torn away a headphone too roughly. He didn't notice until crimson dribbled on the parchment. "T1189 matches Mark Denholm," he whispered. "Shopkeeper on Alder Street. The algorithm pegs it at 91% confidence. Mark sold buttons and ribbons and stories. The town loved him. The phrase, 'Tell her I never meant,' sounded like a man halfway through confessing. Ask anyone. Mark adored his wife, Giselle. They were trying for their 3rd child. "I'm not delivering that slip to her," Soren muttered. The council had decreed an official procedure. Once a voice was matched, a runner delivered a sealed notice to the person, informing them of the risk and the exact words recorded. Plenty ignored the warning, believing it superstitious. Some fled the region, hoping distance could untether fate. But the scream always caught up. And when the moment struck, they spoke those words exactly as the horn had preserved them. We had affidavits from as far as the northern colonies. I volunteered to take Mark's notice, partly because I liked him, partly because I could not shake the guilt of participation without participation's consequence. If I helped record doom, I should at least look it in the eyes. Soren pressed the envelope into my palm. It felt heavier than sealed paper ought. The street outside Denholm haberdashery smelled of cedar shavings and horse dung. A yellow flag hung over the door, signaling a sale on cloth scraps. Mark stood on a little stool, trimming excess thread from a sundress displayed in the window. He greeted me with his usual warmth, but his smile faltered when he saw the envelope. Like me, he greeted me with his usual warmth, but his smile faltered when he saw the envelope. Tamp. Mark stood on a little stool, trimming excess thread from a sundress displayed in the window. He greeted me with his usual warmth, but his smile faltered when he saw me. Oh. He greeted me with his usual warmth, but his smile faltered when he saw me. I was hoping my name would never come up, he said, after reading, voice gone papery. He poured 2 cups of barley tea and pushed one toward me. Did you ever record yourself, Lark? Not yet, I answered. He leaned on the counter. Do you still believe we can outrun it? I believe we have to try, I said, though the words tasted unconvincing. Mark tapped the notice. Tell her I never meant, what, to hurt her, to leave? It could be anything. What am I supposed to do with half a sentence? Maybe finish it now while you have breath, I suggested. Start conversing with the unknown. He gripped my wrist. Promise me you'll give Jassel context. If I cannot. His eyes glimmered with tears. I nodded, though my throat was too tight for speech. That afternoon, the council hall filled with anxious residents demanding reassurance. The mayor, a stout woman named Breed Eld, explained that no pattern connected the 2 new recordings except temporal proximity. She urged, calm, and promised increased patrols along the cliffs. Patrols as though knives or ropes could intimidate fate. After the meeting, I climbed back to the tower for second shift. Riva had left the earphones askew. Her notes trembled with panic. Between 15 o'clock and 15:07:05, more screams poured through, each clear as divorce bells. My stomach cooled to stone as I transcribed. T1190. This isn't the shoreline. T1191. Make room, I can't breathe. T1192. Wordless shriek. Female. T1193. He's still in there. T1194. It's too bright. Repeat. 7 prophecies in a single day. No precedent. I summoned Soren with the emergency lantern signal. He arrived breathless, smelling of ink and fear. A mass casualty event, he said after scanning the sheet. Something's coming for us in bulk. We cross-referenced voices until midnight. The shoreline phrase matched a fisherman. The breathing complaint a seamstress with weak lungs. The wordless shriek belonged to a child named Rion. The too bright repetition belonged to a reclusive elder who kept curtains drawn. We could find no shared geography, no common enemies. Only time connected them. All 5 belonged to households residing on the east side, closer to the water. I slept barely an hour on a cot beside the gears, dreaming storms of glass shards. Then third shift called me. A low fog obscured the moon. The horn remained silent until 3:32, when a delicate voice whispered, "The bridge cannot hold." I recognized it instantly. My cousin Dill, an apprentice carpenter. The bridge referred to the wooden span across the estuary, which he helped maintain. Sweat burst across my scalp. I flipped through the catalog, searching for my own name, as though fear might conjure me onto paper, but the pages remained mercifully absent of Lark Rowan. That morning, town criers ran down every lane, banging pots, warning citizens away from the bridge and the eastern shoreline. Panic bred chaos. People shoved belongings into wagons, horses reared, children screamed. Boats jammed the harbor, sails tangling like white, nervous hands. Mark closed his shop early and clutched Jassel's shoulders, tighter than profit. I escorted them to the square, hoping the inland hills offered refuge. At noon, the sky darkened unnaturally, though our almanacs promised mild weather. A roar rose from beyond the dunes, halfway between thunder and an animal's howl. I glimpsed a wall of water, a surge, taller than any mast, charging up the estuary. "Tuttle bore," Captain Vel shouted, voice almost giddy with terror. The surge struck the wooden bridge first. Planks snapped, joints screaming like living things. My cousin Dild was on the far side, guiding elders toward higher ground. The central beam cracked, and the structure wrenched sideways exactly as his recorded voice predicted. I saw him mouth, "The bridge cannot hold," before the torrent devoured both him and the words. The current then slammed into the docks, ripping boats from moorings, sweeping everything eastward, nets, crates, the fisher whose scream we'd catalogued. I watched harmony become ruin in seconds. The tower shook under the wind's new voice. Not a prophecy now, but real, immediate shrieks, echoing up the brass horn. We shut the recorder off. There was no point capturing present tense death. But the metal drum still vibrated with ghosts of seconds ago farewells. I pressed both palms against the stone to steady my breath. The clerks below rang bells, signaling all clear, when the wave withdrew 20 minutes later, leaving a low field of wreckage and silence. Casualties numbered 31. Every one of the day's new prophecies had come true in less than 12 hours. The council announced that, effective sunset, residence within the tidal zone was prohibited, yet humans are roots more than birds. Many refused to leave homes that still stood, insisting the wave had spent its malice. That evening I walked the shoreline where planks lay tooth-like under a bruised sky. Mark found me there, supporting an old fisherman who had lost both sons. Mark's eyes were hollow. "Still no idea what I never meant," he said. He was helping ferry the injured to the infirmary. I admired his refusal to hide. We believed the worst had passed. Then the recorder awakened again at 1:17, with a sound unlike any previous entry. It was measured, almost conversational. "You promised it would end." A tonal signature belonged to Mera Breald. I jerked upright, skin frosted. 20 minutes later, another line came from Reva herself. "Close the shutters, close them now." And at 3:05, there it was. My own voice, unmistakably mine, scratchy from sleeplessness, delivering 4 words. "Please stop the wind." I froze. Soren, on desk duty, glanced up at me with profound pity. Procedure required he hand me an envelope. As I had handed one to I took it numbly, read my own impending last sentence. A hot pulse hammered in my ears. I tried to joke. Well, at least I'm not screaming incoherently. But it came out as a croak. By midday, new prophecies arrived every few minutes. A machine gun of doom. The list grew to include almost every remaining resident. The device that had once whispered scattered warnings now shouted the town's collective final chorus. We convened an emergency assembly in the cathedral basement, the only hall large enough. Mayor Aldo addressed us first. "For years we used these voices as smoke alarms," she said, voice firm despite the pallor that claimed her cheeks. "Today, we must admit, we are inside the burning house. The screams have become the wind itself. We evacuate tonight. Carriages line the roads by dusk. Some people refused, the old caretaker of the lighthouse, a family whose ancestors built the harbor, Riva, whose prophecy suggested hiding rather than flight. But a majority, including Mark, Jassel, Soren, and me, joined the evacuation caravan, heading west into the highlands. The recorder remained staffed. The council ordered continuous monitoring in case the danger followed. I volunteered again, not out of heroism, but desperation, to understand my final moment before it arrived. A skeleton crew stayed with me, Soren, who no longer trusted any safe distance, and Mayor Ald, prophecy be damned. She believed leadership meant last departure. Our supplies could last 4 days. Night fell bluish and thick. The empty town below looked peaceful, lanterns extinguished, roofs glinting faint starlight. I imagined each house imprinted with a residue of its owner's voice, like a chalk outline, the horn swiveled in the wind, joints squealing. Inside, the tape reel spun, though no new sound emerged. Midnight passed. I started to hope my phrase might never find its context. At 2:14, the earth flexed. Not an earthquake exactly, but a twitch, a muscular shift that tilted my chair. A low moan rolled from the sea, though tide charts predicted stillness. We hurried to the parapet. In the darkness, the water bulged outward as if breathing. Then, across the surface, floating shapes appeared. Hundreds, maybe thousands, bobbing eerily. I trained the spyglass. Doors. Whole house doors. Shutters. Windows torn clean and drifting like puzzle pieces on black glass. The wave had gone out, siphoning pieces of our town with it, and now the sea exhaled rubble back at us. Timber clapped together, forming a grotesque arc. My legs shook. Soren calculated trajectory with a sextant. "It will strike the cliff base in 20 minutes, he said. "Debris could bring the foundation down." Mayor Old told him to ring the evacuation bell. He dashed off. I stayed to haul the recorder crates upstairs. Protocol insisted we preserve the archive. But my arms quivered. As I reached the landing, wind howled through a cracked pane, rattling metal cabinets. The horn picked up my name whispered by the gale. Lark. That's when I understood. The final words weren't warnings but invitations. The wind gathered our sentences, taught them back to us at the moment surrender seemed inevitable. Fate was a conversation, not a decree. If I answered differently, maybe the echo would break. Downstairs, Mayor Ald was bolting external shutters. Her prophecy, "You promised it would end." She spoke it now, half-consciously, cursing as a hinge stuck. I stepped beside her, heart hammering. "I did promise," I said, though I had promised nothing to her before. Still, the reply felt correct. The horn's diaphragm fluttered. My voice played again over the speaker, "Please stop the wind." Future me pleading. I took a breath so deep it stung rib cartilage. Then I shouted into the stairwell funnel that connected to the horn. "Wind, you may carry anything but screams." The absurdity burned my cheeks. Yet the air seemed to stall, surprised by direct address. Outside, the lumber raft slammed the cliff base. Stone dust puffed through cracks, lights flickered, but the tower stood. Long seconds passed. The recorder remained silent. Mayor Ald exhaled a sob. Soren called from below. The foundation held, though the path was blocked by broken beams. We were alive. Dawn arrived uncertain, but with it, a miracle. No new voices. The horn rotated, scanning like an ear seeking gossip, yet grabbed nothing but gull cries. The logbook's final line was my own prophecy, which had not fully come to pass. My recorded last words remained unsaid. And because they remained unsaid, perhaps they no longer qualified as the last. We spent the day clearing debris, then descended the only intact stair to the town. The place was battered, but not erased. Boats marooned on rooftops sat like beached leviathans. Waterlogged dresses fluttered from treetops. Still, buildings stood. Survivors trickled back over the hills, surprised to find homes not entirely smashed. Mark and Jassel arrived near sunset, children in tow, tearful and grateful. Mark hugged me fiercely. "Whatever you did, thank you," he said. I kept trying to finish my sentence, but never had to. Weeks passed. Engineers reinforced the cliff with iron anchors. Some residents resettled inland, yet many returned, drawn by generational gravitational pull. The watchtower's recorder remains, but we disable the horn, except during controlled intervals. Since that night, no prophecy has come. Maybe the wind respects our plea. Maybe disaster simply sought elsewhere. I keep the logbook locked, though sometimes I run my fingers over the blank pages reserved for T1195 forward. Empty lines can be ominous or merciful depending on one's temperature of hope. I visit the cliff at dawn and speak softly into the rising air, offering simple phrases. Good mornings, small jokes, names of newborns just in case the wind still records. If it must carry words, let them be living ones.